Welcome to World Talk Brief. Profound concern. It's just two words, but when they're coming from the very top of the British monarchy, yeah, they carry some serious weight. This is the official word from King Charles about the new wave of allegations hitting his brother, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, all stemming from those newly released Epstein files. So let's get into it and figure out what's really going on here.
And this is a pretty big deal. It's actually the first time since this latest batch of documents came out that Buckingham Palace has put out a formal statement directly from the king. So you can be sure this isn't just some standard PR move. No, this is a very deliberate, very calculated response. It really shows you just how seriously the palace is taking all of this. Okay, so let's break down exactly what the king's position is here. The statement really boils down to three key things. First, you've got that phrase again, his profound concern about everything that's come out. Second, and this is crucial, it signals they're willing to cooperate. The palace says it stands ready to support the police if they come knocking. And finally, it makes a point to say that the king's thoughts are with the victims of any form of abuse. And that mention of the police, that's the real key here. It's not just some abstract idea. This statement is a direct reaction to an actual complaint that the police are looking at right now. So, the big question is, what exactly are they assessing? Well, it turns out the Thames Valley Police have confirmed they're looking into a complaint filed by Republic, the anti-monarchy group. And what's super important to understand is the wording here. Right now, it's just an assessment. It's not a formal investigation, at least not yet. The police are basically just figuring out if there's enough there to even start a full-blown inquiry. So what's the complaint actually about? It all comes down to a very specific charge, misconduct in public office. Basically, that's a charge you can bring against someone who's abused their power while in a public role. And for Andrew, this connects directly back to when he was a UK trade envoy. That job came with some pretty strict rules, including a major duty of confidentiality. The allegations themselves get really specific, focusing on two dates back in 2010. First, on November 30th, emails from these new files seem to show him forwarding official trade reports. We're talking about visits to Singapore, Hong Kong, and Vietnam over to Jeffrey Epstein. And get this, it was apparently just 5 minutes after he got them himself. Then, fast forward to Christmas Eve of that same year, and he's alleged to have shared, quote, confidential details about investment opportunities in Afghanistan, also with Epstein. Now, it's important to know that the king's statement isn't happening in isolation. It's actually one piece of a much larger coordinated response from the senior royals. And when you look at them together, you start to get a much clearer picture of how the institution as a whole is handling this. So let's put these statements side by side. You've got Buckingham Palace speaking for the king, using profound concern, and talking about supporting the police. Then you have Kensington Palace, speaking for the Prince of Wales, saying he's deeply concerned. So you see, the language is slightly different, but the core message is the same. They're showing a united front, but with their own voices. And what's really consistent across both? That focus on the victims. All of this, these official statements, they're all happening while the pressure is really mounting on Andrew. And there have already been some very real consequences. You have to remember, these new allegations about his time as a trade envoy, they're really just one piece of a much, much bigger story. I mean, this release of documents is massive. We're talking 3 million pages. And it's brought a lot of other damaging stuff to the surface. For instance, there are claims from a second woman who alleges Epstein sent her to the UK for a sexual encounter with Andrew. There are embarrassing photos coming out. And there are even emails from his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson, that look like she's asking Epstein for money. And like I said, there have been real, tangible consequences. He's been moved out of his home at Royal Lodge, where he's lived for years, over to the Sandringham estate. And let's not forget, this is all on top of him being stripped of his royal and military titles way back in January of 2022. Now, to be completely fair and balanced here, we have to include his side of the story. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has consistently and very strongly denied any wrongdoing whatsoever. That's been his position from the very beginning, and it hasn't changed. And that brings us to one last really important point to remember. This applies to everyone mentioned in these files. Just because someone's name appears in these documents, that does not automatically mean they're guilty of anything. These files are a really complex mix of flight logs, emails, testimony, all sorts of things. And their release is really just the start of a very long process to figure out what it all actually means.
Subscribe to World Talk Brief for more clear, thoughtful explanations. World Talk Brief, news explained without the noise.